It was one of those perfect Saturday afternoons when you can actually hear the neighborhood exhale. The air smelled faintly of fresh-cut grass. Kids were laughing somewhere down the block, and I was standing in the driveway helping my wife, Marissa, unload groceries from the back of our Jeep. That's when the screech of tires shattered the peace. A silver sedan came whipping around the corner and slammed to a stop across our driveway, blocking us in. Out climbed Karen, the self-crowned queen of our HOA, dressed like she was headed to a garden party that didn't exist, oversized sunglasses glinting, lips pursed in that tight, judgmental way I'd come to recognize as her battle stance. She marched up without so much as a hello, planting herself between Marissa and the open hatch. "You," she barked, pointing a manicured finger, "need to show me your ID right now. We have rules about strangers unloading on HOA property." I blinked. Strangers? That's my wife. Karen's smirk tightened. I don't care who she claims to be. I haven't seen her at the meetings, and until I confirm she's authorized to be here, she's not allowed on this street. HOA regulations. Marissa just stood there, the corner of her mouth twitching, not with anger but with something closer to amusement. She'd warned me this neighborhood had a Karen problem, but I hadn't realized she meant it literally. I could see her calculating whether it was worth engaging. I stepped forward. "She lives here. You're overstepping." Karen turned her full attention on me, voice dropping to that syrupy condescension she thought made her sound powerful. "Overstepping is letting unknown individuals roam our community without oversight. I have the authority to detain until police arrive. You will comply." Marissa tilted her head, finally speaking. "You want me to wait for the police?" "Yes," Karen said, mistaking calm for compliance. "We'll sort this out with them. I've already called." It was then Marissa reached into her pocket, not for a wallet, but for a slim black case I knew very well. She flipped it open, revealing an ID card that was not issued by the DMV. "I was going to keep this quiet," she said, "but since you insist." Before Karen could lean in to see, the low growl of an approaching engine drew all our eyes. A black SWAT SUV rolled to a stop behind Karen's car. The doors popped open in unison, and 4 fully geared officers stepped out. And then, as one, they straightened, saluted, and said, "Commander." Karen's sunglasses slipped down her nose as her jaw hung open. "Commander?" she stammered, turning toward me like maybe I could explain the laws of physics that had just bent in front of her. Marissa's voice stayed calm, almost gentle. "I train this county's tactical response unit. You've just detained me on my own property without cause." The lead officer, Sergeant Vega, stepped forward, visor lifted, eyes hard. "Ma'am," he said to Karen, "you're interfering with an active duty law enforcement officer. That's a criminal offense." Karen's mouth opened, closed, then opened again, flailing for some version of events that wouldn't end with her in cuffs. "Two didn't know. How was I supposed to know who she was?" "That's the point," Vega said. "You don't detain people based on assumptions, especially not my commanding officer." The street had gone dead silent. Neighbors peeked from windows, phones out, recording every second. Karen's perfectly rehearsed posture started to sag as the reality settled in. She tried to flex HOA power over the one person in the county who could end her day with a single phone call. Then came the twist. Vega turned to Marissa. "Commander, while we're here, you should know we've been investigating this HOA fraudulent fines, illegal surveillance, harassment complaints. We've got probable cause to act." Karen's head snapped toward him. "Wait, you can't just..." He cut her off with a sharp glance. "We can, and we will." 2 more unmarked vehicles pulled up, plainclothes investigators spilling out with evidence boxes. They walked right past Karen into the HOA office at the end of the block, escorted by a deputy with a warrant in hand. Word spread fast, doors opened. Neighbors poured out, murmuring, pointing. Someone clapped. Karen stood frozen, the queen stripped of her crown, while the officers she thought she'd summoned turned out to be the army that dismantled her little kingdom. Marissa didn't even raise her voice. She just looked Karen in the eye and said, "Next time, you might want to think twice before demanding ID from someone on their own driveway." The block turned into something out of a live documentary. Neighbors who had been too scared to speak before were suddenly emboldened. Mrs. Patel from 3 houses down came out holding a folder of bogus fines Karen had issued over the past year, charges for things like holiday decor violations and driveway stain removal. Each one conveniently payable directly to a P.O. box that now had the fraud team's full attention. Sergeant Vega kept one officer with Karen at all times. Not because she was a flight risk, she was too stunned to move, but because the tension in the air felt like it could crack into chaos at any second. Marissa stayed calm, almost detached, which I knew was her way of keeping everyone else from panicking. Even in civilian clothes, she had that command presence that made people instinctively listen. The investigators moved quickly, hauling out boxes of HOA records from the office. One of them, a tall guy in a windbreaker-marked county fraud unit, came over to Vega and Marissa holding a stack of printed emails. "These confirm it," he said. "HOA funds diverted into a personal account under Karen's name, plus 2 shell companies. We're looking at embezzlement on top of harassment." Karen finally found her voice, though it came out shaky. "You can't just take our records. I'm the president." Vega cut her off. "You were the president. As of now, the county is seizing control of this HOA pending criminal proceedings." That's when Ted, her so-called vice president, appeared from behind the clubhouse, phone in hand, trying to slip away. He didn't make it far. 2 officers intercepted him and escorted him back toward the street. One look at his pale face and darting eyes told me he was about to flip to save himself. Sure enough, I overheard him telling investigators that Karen had orchestrated the whole scheme and that he'd only gone along because she threatened to have him fined into bankruptcy. The real gut punch came about an hour later when they found a binder labeled Resident Watch List. Inside were names, addresses, photos, and personal notes on almost every homeowner, what cars they drove, their work schedules, even details about their kids. Karen had turned the HOA into a surveillance machine, and my wife's name was circled in red ink with the words "possible security threat" scrawled beside it. Marissa stared at that page for a long moment before handing it back to Vega. "Lock her up," she said simply. By sunset, the street was lined with patrol cars and unmarked vans. Karen was placed in handcuffs, her wrists swallowed by the metal, and read her rights as the cameras rolled. She didn't fight it. She just kept muttering, "This isn't happening," like saying it enough times might rewrite reality. The moment she was guided into the back of the cruiser, a cheer went up from a cluster of neighbors at the corner. The news crews arrived just in time to catch the tail end of it. By the 11 p.m. broadcast, the headline was everywhere. HOA president arrested for fraud. Harassment confronted police commander on her own driveway. The footage of SWAT saluting Marissa played on repeat, turning her into an overnight legend in the county. In the weeks that followed, the county dissolved the HOA entirely. All pending fines were voided, and restitution payments began trickling back to residents who'd been scammed. The clubhouse was repurposed into a true community center for events. No bylaw policing, no intimidation. Karen's trial was a spectacle. Former allies lined up to testify against her in exchange for lighter sentences. The jury needed only 2 days to convict her on all counts: embezzlement, harassment, unlawful surveillance, and interference with law enforcement. The judge handed down a sentence of 12 years without parole and ordered her to repay every cent she had stolen. The day she was led out of the courtroom in shackles, I caught Marissa watching her with the same steady calm she'd shown that first day in the driveway. There was no gloating, no smugness, just the quiet satisfaction of someone who defended her home and her neighbors without losing her composure. That night, as we sat on the porch listening to the crickets, Marissa finally broke her silence about the whole ordeal. "The funny thing is," she said, "if she'd just asked who I was instead of assuming she had power over me, none of this would have happened." I thought about the look on Karen's face when the SWAT snapped to attention, and I knew that moment would live rent-free in my mind for the rest of my life. So I'll put it to you, was letting her dig her own grave the right move? Or should Marissa have revealed who she was the second Karen tried to throw her weight around?